Are you aware of the impact of the planet Chiron in our birth chart? Have you been feeling the year of the dragon energy yet? Do you remember in my last episode, I said I had a very special guest this week? If so, hold that phone. I'm so excited to have the wonderful Lonna Davis back on the show to tell us her wise words and wonderful wisdom. I'll say no more and I'll give no more spoilers. Let's take it away.
It's so great to have you back on the podcast again, Lona. You're so welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here again.
And there have been some people waiting for you to come back, so I'm sure they're going to be so happy to hear you're back as well.
Oh, that makes my heart very happy to hear. Well, I got lots to say as usual, so.
What have you been feeling over the last, I suppose, few weeks since our last podcast?
It's been a roller coaster, that is for sure. I think that February 10th was when we welcomed in the Dragon New Year. This is the new year of the wood dragon, which is beautiful because wood element kind of balances, grounds in, and it's actually a really beautiful balance to kind of the intensity of the dragon energy. We've been talking about this for months, and I feel like what's coming is just going to be kind of like this roller coaster of like events that are just unfolding before us. And I can say honestly, physically, I've been moving through some things. I feel like, I don't know, well, I'm going to talk about V because we talked about her last time. My dragon parallel self was fully integrated within I guess, week or so. And that was a crazy process in itself. It was pretty much, she's a fire being. She's got a lot of fire. She is a sacred rage, which is a very powerful energy. And it's taken me about 10 months to just fully integrate her in. And this last final push was quite a journey, to say the least. I had so much fire in my body that I was just constantly being burned. I had 3 bee stings in like 2 days, which bees like can be on my body normally with no problems.
Yeah.
Just to the point where like the liquid processes in my body were being vaporized by the fire element. So trying to find that balance within myself was interesting in the physicality. Mentality wise, I was actually quite grounded in, but you just kind of like, it's been a very muggle time. We are very much in our physicality. We are very much in the space where we have to kind of like look at those fears and insecurities and all the things that are kind of in the way. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Chiron thing because that's very prevalent now, but it's been a journey of just physically integrating in these new energies for me, and I'm sure for many other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really just learning to surrender to the unknown. Like there are just odd symptoms, ascension things happening, things integrating in. And if we try to kind of attach each time to why this is happening and where this comes from, then sometimes we're not meant to know. Sometimes it's just about the flow and just surrendering to, this is the physical body. There's things happening I don't understand. And what is going on? Where does that come from? And why is this happening? So I feel like there's a balance between needing to know what's happening and also surrendering to the unknown. And that has been a process because humans aren't generally great with giving up control and letting go. So it's been an interesting time. Yeah. But I'm feeling better, more balanced, like really, really grounded into this energy. And it's been a process to integrate, but beautiful. And I just feel the power of my being and the power of standing in my authenticity, and that is fueling me to help others do the same. So it's a crazy time, but also an exciting time. And you just got to kind of hold on to your hats for this one, I think.
What advice could you give to help transmit or manage this big transition?
I think really, again, it always comes back to the shadow. And really, I will touch on Chiron because Chiron is the planet of the unhealed wound. It's called it's the wounded healer. And it is very, very prevalent right now because we are going into deep, deep inner child wounding. And the Chiron wound is pretty much the deepest core wound that we have as a being in this incarnation. But it is the patterning that we always go back to. And even when we feel it's healed, it's probably not. Some astrologers believe that it's an unhealable wound, regardless of the energy you give to it. I don't believe that. I think anything can be healed when you give the right intention and energy to something. But it is a patterning and something that we really need to look at. And it always stems from childhood. It's something that we need to understand is very present in our lives. And the more we understand where that looks, like on anybody's natal chart, if you look that up, if you look at the house and you also look at the astrological sign that it's in, it will tell you very, very accurately exactly what is going on in your life. And when you can learn what the shadows are, what the fears are, what the insecurities are, and the things we have pushed away because it wasn't safe enough, or a time where we felt we could enter into that, that's all getting pulled up and excavated now for us to kind of just look at and really, really try and heal that wound. Because when we heal that wound, we can then not come from our traumas. We can then walk with more power, with, solidness in our stride, and just connection to the physical as well as the spiritual. And I think we're always going to try and find a balance between those two things. But right now, really looking at those areas of our life that really just need to be excavated, removed, worked through, and made space for things that are coming into our experience that are more aligned to our path. Mm-hmm. And that is hard. That's hard to do. That's hard to look at. And that's why up until this point, we haven't done as deep a work as we need to. And that's all the energy of the dragon as well, is really just stepping into your power and authentically walking that, knowing who you are. And to do that, we have to enter into these spaces of really, really looking at those core wounds of our inner child, and those wounds that are preventing us from connecting with the people we're meant to, and aligning to the jobs and the relationships and, the healthy atmosphere that all of us on a spiritual level really, really desire from a core level. So excavating all the shadows, getting into that, and also really knowing who you are, understanding your natal chart, under like human design, using all the tools that we can to really be like, this is my power space. Human design, I really advocate for, because it really focuses on your power spaces. This is what you're good at. This is what you're here to do. And this is what you're not meant to do. And in a lot of old teachings, it's like, push through the things that you're not good at, give energy to that so you can be balanced. But it's very much like, some things we're not meant to do and some things we are. And when we give all of the energy to the things that we are, all the other things that aren't meant to be there will just fall away, because it's just filling space. And when we see clearly and with clarity where we're moving towards, everything naturally falls off anyways. And that will it's a truer, clearer path. And when you're aligned to that vibration, the people you're meant to meet will connect with you, will come in. And I see that a lot with my clients. It's always a beautiful process with clients, because they're always mirroring back to you something that you're working through. And there's a reason why you're working together, because it's a symbiotic relationship of trust and safety that is provided in both spaces. I can't hold space for someone if we both don't feel safe. And there's a lot of mirroring when it comes to clients, and we're connected to who we're connected to for a reason. Mm-hmm. So when you align to those people, you align to the places, the modalities, the lifestyle that feels truest to you, then you can't really not walk your path. It's kind of in your face. And also, if you see something you're supposed to do and you don't, then spiritually there's more consequences. So it's just gonna keep coming back around and kind of bopping you on the head there. But I would say just learning who you are, not attaching to those things and being like, I'm a Scorpio or I'm this. We have so many variations and variables that make up who we are on all the levels, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And when we understand all the aspects of self, we can really feel whole. Mm-hmm. And when we're whole, we're healthy.
Yeah, definitely. And what have you noticed a pattern among your clients in this aspect regarding Chiron, inner child, and shadow work? Is it going through like waves?
I think Chiron, yes. Chiron isn't like very well known, and it's a newer planet that's only kind of been around since like the 50s, or just consciously around. Mm-hmm. And it really, really is present with everybody right now. So how deep you go into that, how much you're looking at that, how much you're escaping from that will really, it's with everybody. That will really kind of tell you, hey, where I'm at. And the number one thing I keep hearing is, I thought I healed this already. I thought I already healed that. And you're just like, well, spirit has another idea on that. So really being open to being like, okay, maybe I didn't heal that, or maybe there's a little bit more work here to do, or maybe I need to try a different approach. Or we're not meant to just deal with physical problems, mental problems, and just move through it. It's there for a reason, to highlight to us, this is an area that we need to give a little more focus to. So every single person alive right now is feeling Chiron. How much they're aware of it is based on their individual journey. But the more you can understand this part of yourself, the more that you can just bring in all the elements that you're working with, your power points, the shadow points, and everything in between, then you really, really have a greater understanding of the blueprint of where you've been, where you're at now, and where you're trying to go.
Yeah, to clear the pathway for allowing.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really is. And what's your opinion of where things are going from now onwards?
From what I've seen and connected to, I feel that I don't want to give timelines because they're always changing, but generally the next year or two is I'm not trying to create a fear space here, but we will be in chaos. We are in chaos. It's all around us. It's going to continue. It's going to be just these unfolding events. I don't see one large event. It's all these smaller events, which is leading up to this precipice essentially that we're on. That we are really in a space of everything crumbling. The systems of the world are crumbling. The governments, the school systems, like, this is the time of Aquarius for the next 20 years where we are revolutionizing how we live as a society, how we exchange energy as a society, how we pay for things, how we want to live. And we can see that very much in people moving all over the world, choosing a different lifestyle, aligning a little bit more to like what they're fed by, what their heart is leading them to. And all of us are creative beings, whether we remember that or not. And we're here to create, we're here to connect. And I think the biggest thing we'll see over the next 20 years is a long time to talk about right now, but we are in that space where we are completely changing, the way that we live and how we connect and what we feel nourished in. And we are going to see a lot more community living. We're going to see communities coming together, co-parenting. We're going to be seeing relationships that are not conventional. We're going to see many different types of monetary systems. We're already seeing that with crypto and all that kind of, like, that's going to be more prevalent, more options. I feel like the next 2 years, everything is crumbling as we know it. And for things to crumble, it's going to be chaos. There's going to be the people that are in power clinging to these elements of power, trying to instill things. And we see that all over the world when the power is crumbling, and it will crumble. It will. It's meant to. This is a part of what's happening, but the chaos in the final crumble before we can rebuild is what we're in right now. And they've been talking about this since 2012, like we're 2012 to like 2032, 2040-ish. Those years, we're in the middle of that right now. And we've been seeing this build. We've been seeing a lot of people passing over to the other side. The frequency is changing. There are a lot of beings that can't handle staying in this frequency. They are meant to go. It's that time. And there's a lot of beings coming in that are very advanced, have a lot more activated DNA. They're just able to do things. Super alien beings, like a lot of us. So there's shifts coming in ways that a lot of people can't see on a larger scale that have been happening for a long time at this point. And all of the next 3 years is just the crumbling of that process. And that's why the self-work is so important right now, because the self-work that we do will determine how affected we are by the external. The chaos is going to happen, and the work we do now is what will keep us anchored in ourselves, will keep us feeling solid, and just our homeostasis will be balanced. We'll be able to flow with the chaos because it won't touch us. Or at least, it will to a degree, but how much we have control over how much that affects us. Yeah. And when we understand we have that control, we can do a lot of things to prevent that from touching us. We can protect ourselves. We can make sure that doesn't touch us. And I think that's my biggest passion, is just to help people understand that We have this power inside us. It's already there. All the tools are there, and we are powerful. And we need to stand into that power, move into that power. And right now, everything is being burned away that's in the way of us standing in that power. That is the energy of the dragon. They are burning it away. They are forcing you to see, and it's not comfortable. It's not a comfortable process. It's not going to be a comfortable process. But the more you surrender into needing to just know yourself, needing to be in balance within yourself, the more work you do there, the more you will be balanced, and the easier the process will be, and more things will come to you to help you align to that peaceful middle road where it's not these extremes that we've been riding. It's just been a crazy magic carpet ride of late. Like, so it's just, you're in for the ride, and there's an element to surrender, but also accountability for yourself, and knowing, okay, I need a little bit of help here. And what does that look like for me?
Yeah, it's totally like a preparation, It's like we're preparing ourselves to be anchored and strong for the future,
Exactly. Because the world is changing, and we are, as humans, stay very comfortable in what we know. And to move to a way that feels better on a whole, we have to move through the discomfort, and how much we cling to the old ways and hold on to that. It's going to be a harder process for you. So surrendering. Yeah, surrendering to not understanding, but also taking ownership for the parts that you can control.
Yeah. It's like when we don't want to work on our inner child wounds or our shadow self, it makes it much more difficult for us. And things just keep coming up, and inconveniences and struggle and pain and suffering. And it's because we need to work on the things that we should.
Exactly. And those patterns will keep coming up in your life over and over again. And each time it will be a little bit more difficult than the last time. And it will just continue until you have the awareness to look at that and be like, hey, there's something here for me. There's something I need to sit with here. And I think having that mentality about anything in life, everything is a lesson. Like, everything is a lesson. So when we can separate that from why is the world out to get me, or it being a personal thing, or why me kind of thing, and like remove that victim mentality, and really recognize that this is something that I've called into my life. This is something that I need to heal for myself. And the only person that would benefit from that at doing the work is you. So how much you're willing to surrender to that, how much you're willing to give energy to really looking at those uncomfortable aspects will really determine, how comfortable your next little while will be. Because it's not going to be comfortable at all. Like, it just won't. We are in transitions, and transitions are not comfortable. But if we can be solid in ourselves in the discomfort, and create also a different narrative to pain and discomfort, and learn to be comfortable in the discomfort.
Yeah.
That is a huge thing, I think, rather than running from it or not wanting to see it, leaning in, looking at that, shining that light. Because when you shine the light, there is no dark. It's all seen. It's all come up. And the light, again, we talk about this, the light and the dark are the same thing. It's just different aspects of the whole. So when we can change our fear looking at those things, and we can come from a space of softness, and we can come from a space like our inner child, what do I need to feel safe? Where do I feel unsafe? And how can I make myself feel safe? Where did my child self feel unsafe? Do I still feel this way? And I really like to use a practice where, if you write in a journal with your non-dominant hand, and you just think from your inner child, what would your inner child say to you at this point now? From that space of, what do I need to feel safe? When did I not feel safe as a child? What were those wounds? And how can I bring that to light now? Because those wounds are coming up. As adults, doesn't matter where you are in your life, those wounds are coming up. And how we look at them, we need to have compassion with ourselves. We are humans in this time and space, but we are so much more than that. And we find ourselves limiting that, I'm just human, or I'm just this. And it's just like, we have all the control over how we move through the world, what we choose to give energy to. And when we do good things for ourselves, that reverberates out to the whole, because we're all here to co-create. We are here to come together and and create community. And there's a huge disconnect with that. That's also something that with Aquarius over the next 20 years is going to really shift and change, because we are disconnected from our hearts. And a lot of the internet is not a negative, it's not, but I feel like having a positive relationship with the internet and understanding balance within that, I think, is key too, because there is an element of disconnection and we are moving way more into the AI, artificial intelligence. We need to find that heart connection. We need to stay connected as part of nature, as part of our true self, because we could get lost in the technology age, which is what we're moving into. And that's what happened in Atlantis. They got lost in the technology age and blew themselves up. So, and the far-reaching effects of that is also coming up in the consciousness of a lot of starseeds and a lot of beings that have lived in those places, because there's a deep collective wound that's coming up to be healed. So it's not even also like our personal wounds. We have ancestral wounds that we like our bloodlines that we incarnate into. We take on those wounds. We also have wounds from other planetary systems we've lived. So there is an element of going too far down the hole, because not everything we need to understand, but just looking at what's there, understanding how we can work with that, and also, again, having compassion for yourself in that process, because it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that needs to be looked at continuously and with devotion, but also with compassion.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think we lack in our world, is really remembering to be compassionate with ourselves.
Yeah. And what's your take on how to manage fear better? Because I think fear is the number one biggest block for people, and why they don't go down the rabbit hole.
I agree with you. I agree. I think fear is just an energy. Yeah. And again, it comes back to mentality. So we all have fear. Fear is there for a reason. It's there to drive us. It's there to warn us. It's there to show us something. Just like any pain in the body is an alarm system to be like, hey, pay attention. We have the fight or flight or the freeze. We have all those elements. But when you really come back to fear and you look at fear from the observer, if you can witness fear and separate the emotional connection that you have to that can be utilized in a positive way. Just like anything energetically can be transmuted into the positive. If you look at that and say, this is something I don't want to do, I shy away from, this is scary to me, that is a very true indication that is something you need to lean into, that you need to look at, because why are you fearful? Where does that come from? Mm-hmm. And why is it so deep that you haven't been able to look at it until this point? And also, if it's coming up now, what has shifted for you to be open to seeing that now? Mm-hmm. So fear it's debilitating. It can lock you in. It's just, and we have emotional trauma responses to that. And I think every single person alive has PTSD, if you're really going to put it into that, because we all have traumas. We all have things that really put us into that space that we're not operating from our normal self or our balanced self. Mm-hmm. So really changing the narrative on anything is really just looking at, this pain is here, why? This lesson is here, I'm triggered by that, I'm jealous here, I have greed here, I'm gluttonous with food here, why? Where does that come from? Where do you feel lack, and what are you feeding that you can't feed in another way? And it's really those deep things, those patternings, our vices, the things that keep us escaping, the things that keep us in that comfort space, but it's not comfortable, because on a core level, we don't want to be doing these things. We understand. So looking at fear in a way of a teacher or a guide or someone that maybe, I don't want to say demon, because that could just say a whole other, we could go down a different road, but this is just this is another form of a teacher. Yeah. It's there to show you something, and we need to be open to receiving that lesson. So I think the biggest thing with everything right now is just how we can look at something. And if we can see, how can this be a benefit, or how can I integrate this into my life for the benefit of myself and for everybody else, then everything doesn't seem so overwhelming, so drown. Like a lot of people, like, I feel like I'm drowning, is a lot what I hear right now. And really, we have that control to feel like, okay, what makes us feel out of control? Where are we at with that? And what can we do to bring that into balance? Only the things we can control, though. And also having that understanding of what we can control and what we can't. is imperative, because when we try to cling and hold on to things that are just not meant for us anymore, then that's when we're moving farther away from really looking at that shadow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's been coming up for a few of my clients as well, is the fear of going down, going through the door and not being able to come back again, you know. So,
Yeah. And that's also like that is something coming up with my clients as well. And I think there's a deeper collective wound with
mhm.
that. There's
Yeah.
a lot like I'm not going to go too crazy into this, but galactic wars, things that have happened in the planetary systems that are so deeply ingrained in our soul history that we wouldn't even have conscious understanding of how to that's there or how to even approach that. That's
Yeah.
why I love what we do, because we can access those places. And it's just such an exciting time to do that because there's so much coming up in the collective.
Yeah.
And now we actually have a tool to be like, well, let's go there.
Yeah.
Before it was just this unknown thing. And when it's unknown, that creates fear.
Yeah.
When you can control it, see it, put a name to it. And I'm not about labels, but sometimes that's helpful to just find that root and be like, this is what this is. And now I can create steps towards moving through that and healing that and transmuting that, because everything is energy and even the negatives can be transmuted into positive. So it's just about understanding that balance. Everything again comes back to balance. So
What
yeah.
advice would you give to for people to connect with this dragon energy that we're in?
Well, they're already here. So if you just try to connect with them, they will be present.
Yeah.
They're very high dimensional. So if you set that intention, they're part of everything. They're everywhere and they're very present right now. I would say just honestly, nighttime is better, like dusk time or any time at night. If you
Mhm.
light a candle fire is dragons are very connected to water as well, but the fire seems to invoke them more. So just setting the intention, having a space, preferably nighttime or dusk, and just connecting. Everybody can connect if you just set that intention.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are coming through dream time as well. So if you set that intention right before bed, you will
Mhm.
most likely get a visit or something. And just if you don't, keep setting the intention, because they will come if you reach out, because they are here to serve. That is the number one thing that they're here for. So wanting to walk in your power, being ready to own what they tell you, what
Yeah.
they show you,
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing. And if you're not, they'll be around, but they're not gonna, if you're calling the dragon, you need to be ready to walk your path.
Yeah.
And to really fly with the dragon, you need to be authentic. And to align with that energy means burning away what will prevent you from connecting, what will
Yeah.
prevent you from connecting to yourself. And that intention is everything. They will show up if you set that intention and you're really honestly willing to do the work, because it's not going to get lighter over the next while. So the more you're willing to look at that they're happy. That's why they're here. That's what they want. So, and they're
Mhm.
coming through in a lot of messages like via music, not necessarily just like connection from meditation. They'll come through symbols, signs, music, electronics, vibrational things.
Yeah.
And that's mostly how they've been coming through for a lot of people recently. Yeah,
And they kind of, I get the sense of protection as well, especially for people who have that fear factor. It's kind of like a
absolutely.
spirit, it's a spirit animal or a totem, similar.
Absolutely. Like the dragon's a shapeshifter. So like they take whatever form you need at the time. So they can come in another form, but
Mhm.
always a protector. Like they are the protectors, if anything. They are fierce in compassion, and they imbue you with the energy of your sovereign being, who you
Mhm.
are in your divine state. And they are here to show you and help you remember that part of yourself.
Mhm.
And all of the stuff right now is very human. It's very 3D. It's very like get your shit together in your job, in your life. Like make sure your home is a sacred space. Make sure that your work is something that fills your heart, that in a lot of ways is serving the whole on a positive level. Align yourself to the things that are really you walking your divinity and walking your birthright of being an abundant, like really everybody is abundant. It is our birthright. So when you understand that, you put yourself in that position to receive that, they will just gift you and give you, because that's why we're here. And we're not meant to have issues with money and all these little things that are preventing us, that just overtake us, when really that's not even like half of the reason we're here. We're here for larger things. And when we align to that, I don't really like to talk about the new earth or the new world. Like I just feel like there's a lot of crap about that out there, but it is valid.
Yeah.
And to move into that space, this is the work that's required. This is why it is the dragon time. This is like everything is happening because it was destined to be this way. This is how it's meant to happen. And we need dragon energy right now, because that is the energy that is needed to really, really burn away all the things that we have been using as tools to keep ourselves hidden, to keep ourselves hiding, to keep ourselves more in our pain body. And they want us to thrive. They want us to walk in our power, live that fully. So when we live that, that ripples out to everyone around us. And people are fearful sometimes of standing in their power and walking that. And when they see somebody else doing that, hey, I can do that too. And that's all it takes, is just walking your talk, walking it authentically. And most of the time that's uncomfortable, because it generally goes against what society thinks is normal, what is comfortable. Different types of partnerships out there, like leaving your comfortable job and starting a nonprofit, or starting an animal sanctuary, or something that most people would be like, that's crazy. But that's what we're being called to do. Even when it looks crazy, if that's what your heart is telling you, that's what you need to be doing. And it's to really connect with your heart, because our mind will tell us one thing. Our hearts will guide us truly, because our hearts are always in fifth dimensional frequency, always. And when we can really come from our heart, it's the highest understanding. Our mind cannot understand that. So connecting with your body, creating practices where you understand your energy, understand your body and what it's telling you. When your mind, body, and spirit is in balance, everything aligns for you. And you are abundant. That is a natural sovereign right that we have as beings, is to be provided for and to feel safe.
And can you recommend a practice to align ourselves with that energy and connect to our heart, either through music or nature or something? What practice can
both very valid. You know me, I'm all about the music. So frequencies are everything. There's a frequency for every single thing, has a frequency, and everything has a way of balancing in, like, things that are out of balance. So when you can sit with yourself and be like, I'm feeling this way today, or I'm feeling a little bit of anger, I'm feeling something stuck here, there's a frequency for that. And there's so much content and material. Eventually I will be putting a lot of my own music out of this, but there's so much content and material out there where you can just connect to that frequency. And really letting go and just connecting and letting that be subtly affecting you. Nature will always be healing. Getting in nature, getting in the waters, like walking in the forests. Solitude. I think a lot of people need more solitude, because there's a lot of energies externally that we're affected by when we're not conscious of that. And solitude and silence is the only time where you meet yourself, where you fully meet yourself. And a lot of people are fearful of what they will find when they meet themselves. And that is the first step to taking ownership over your own life and what comes to you. Really just honoring that and looking at that and being willing to see that. Because if we can't take that first step, then we are constantly going to be using our vices to escape, using our vices to keep us in that little shell of safety. Eventually you will be blasted out of that shell, because it's not conducive to your path. It's not conducive to the energy and timeline that you're meant to be living. So practices, I think I said this on your last podcast as well, but the chakra clearing meditation, I really highly recommend doing once, like before you get out of bed and before you go to sleep. Because for beginners, it's great. Find a guided meditation that's about 10 minutes long. Find a voice that you find soothing. I've sent so many different ones to people and they're like, this voice annoys me, I hate it. It's just like, find something that feels good for you, because that's important.
On YouTube.
Yeah, you can't have someone's just like the whole time you're thinking like, oh my God, this voice, this woman, I can't, like, you need someone that creates that safety and that soothingness for you. But 10 minutes, just start with that. it's beautiful to have a guided meditation. And I like the chakra meditations because it takes you through connecting with each energy system in your body. And it asks you to see the colors, to move the colors. And it helps you build a connection with your body, but also it gives you feedback. Like if you're looking at your root and you're like, wow, that's a really dark red today, and the next day it's vibrant and this bright red, and you're like, oh, that's different. Like you can see where you're at, and oh, it's a little bit smoky today, it's not that clear, it was harder to kind of open that. And once we're clearing that and connecting to our energy body, we are automatically integrating more information, and we are automatically clearing our bodies, and we're preparing our body for the day. We're allowing ourselves to check in with ourselves. I go through each of my organs. How are you today? What's going on with you? And you create that relationship also with your ego. Creating a healthy relationship with your ego is something that I haven't talked about before, but it's something that's crucial because humans need ego. And there's such a negative connotation to ego. And really, again, it's just about creating a positive relationship with the ego so it works for you and not against you.
Yeah.
And overextending the ego is just wounding and trauma, but I really think that honestly creating that healthy relationship with your ego is really important as well, because then it takes us to our inner child. It takes us to what is it that we need people to know about us? What do we feel like we're not seen in?
Yeah.
And then that will lead us back to a little bit more balance. But I would say 10-minute chakra meditation when you get up and right before bed, because clearing your body, preparing it for the day, and also clearing all the debris and everything that transpired over the day prepares your body for sleep and also helps you integrate in the information when you're sleeping. And also our guides work on us. They give us healings. They help us when we're sleeping, and it just allows your physical body to be in a space where you're more receptive for that help.
Yes. Thank you so much. That's such wise wisdom as always. And is there anything else you'd like to tell everyone out there if they're struggling, or anybody about anything else?
I think honestly, just the number one thing I'm seeing a lot is like people are they're hermiting. And I think there's a fine balance with that. You do need to have space and you do need solitude, but we need connection. And I think right now we're really looking at who do we feel supported by? Who when we reach out is really there for us? Who is our support system? And a lot of beings are seeing that maybe they're not as supported as they thought, or maybe someone that they were relying on isn't someone that really can show up in all the ways that they need to hold space at that time. There's a lot of reconfiguring of our support, how we feel supported. And I would say really, really, if you look at your support system and you're like, I'm just going to stay to myself. If you don't have those beings to reach out to, then that means you need to find those beings.
Yeah.
You need to connect with community. It's really important that we are supported and people see you for where you're at, and they honor your process, and they're in that growth process with you, because we're all meant to co-create and come together, and connection is so much more important than I think anybody realizes. We're humans and we need to connect, and solitude is beautiful and there's a time and a place, but when you're in that moment, when you're not supported, who do you reach out to? Do you reach out, or do you hold back out of fear? A lot of people don't reach out because they don't want to burden others, they don't want to add that, or they don't want to show those parts of themselves. So it's really important to have people in our lives we can show ourselves to, that we do feel safe. And if you don't, find a practitioner. Find somebody that can provide that safety for you. That's the number one thing my clients are like, I feel safe with you. And that's because we take the time to really create that safety before we even enter any of those healing spaces. And that's really important. We need to do that with ourselves, our loved ones. And if that isn't something that's present in your life, seek out those people. We all have soul family. We have our tribe. We have our people that are meant to support us and be those teachers, and we are meant to help them as well. So connect, really, really connect, because it's hard. It's hard right now. It's not easy. Shadow work is difficult. We're in the shadow. And the more that we can honor our process, but also know that we're held in other ways, that it's safe to express, that it's safe to be seen. A lot of us have a lot of witch wounds, a lot of wounds where we were not safe. We were not safe. And when we were showing ourselves, we were excommunicated or, taken from this world, and it was not safe. there's a lot of soul trauma coming up right now. And we need to find the spaces, find the people, find the areas that we feel safe in, because we can't go into those deep wounds, those deep places without that safety. So understanding that in yourself, connecting with people who can provide that for you is paramount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Lonna. Of course, I'll put your details in the show notes as well so people can reach out to you.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
hopefully see you again soon.
I'm sure we will. Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun.
What a wonderful chat with Lonna. I absolutely love having her on the podcast so much. She never fails to deliver such empowering messages. Just for those of you who might not be aware of what the dragon really symbolizes, dragon energy, guides, spirit dragon animals symbolize power, change, and spirituality. Dragons symbolize good luck and fortune and prosperity. And in some cultures, especially Eastern Asian cultures, and during the days of imperial China, the Emperor of China usually used the dragon as a symbol of his imperial power and strength. The dragon spirit animal or guide can also symbolize self-love and empowerment. This dragon spirit guide can help us tap into our power. All we need to do is call upon it. And when we do call upon our dragon guide, we need to be prepared and ready to really allow the dragon to help us work on our self-love and empowerment, and maybe help us manage our shadow or inner child. So I hope you enjoyed Lonna's first episode back in December. If you haven't already listened to Lonna's first episode, it's episode 14 regarding V, who's her parallel dragon, her parallel self, who is a dragon, and she explains who V is, V's power, and how, V integrates into Lonna's life. Very interesting. And she also goes into exploring our shadow and shows us her vibrational healing sounds, which you can hear in the background here. The background of this podcast episode is Lonna, her wonderful vibrational healing sounds. So embrace this as you listen. If you would like to embrace from this healing sounds, just with the intention, open yourself up to receiving the healing energy. And you can do so on episode 14 as well. Lonna discussed Chiron and the effect and possible things we need to work on regarding Chiron in our chart. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes if you're interested in exploring Chiron in your astrological chart and what house it's in. It's very interesting to discover. It might give us some ideas and understanding about what might be happening, and it also can give us greater self-awareness, compassion, and help us grow personally, especially if we're trying to understand and navigate our inner wounds. It can help us explore our shadow as well. So as I said, I'll leave that link in the show notes as well as Lonna's contact details, and I'll also leave a link to exploring your human design chart, which I already did in the last episode with Christian, but I'll do it again just in case you hadn't listened to that episode. Thank you so much to everyone for listening and lending your ears, and I really hope you've benefited from this episode. I wish you a wonderful week and see you in a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. Take care. Stay safe.